the #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatScale.ai.
Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
Hello, hope everyone can hear me all right. So yeah, as he said, we're talking about content and creative now, so I hope everyone's excited. And for me specifically, we're going to be talking about designing viral content, and most of this is actually going to be all about TikTok, so hopefully you're all interested and excited about that. But let's dive into that. So probably your first question is, what does she know about going viral? And I'm definitely no Alex Earl, but I've had a couple viral videos here and there, and I've been able to kind of study their themes and like similarities and differences and picked up some advice points basically. So we're gonna dive into those. So a little bit more about me. I've worked in social and design for about 6 years. I moved to the UK a couple years ago, absolutely love working here. Currently, I lead the social offering at Kaizen Agency. We are an awesome digital PR, SEO, influencer, and social agency in near Old Street in London. This is my second year speaking at Brighton SEO. So I spoke last year about empty space and negative space in design. I was in a much smaller stage, so this is a little more intimidating, but I'm really excited to be here. And I also run a floral community on social called Look at the Lilies Co. So if you at all are interested in flowers or the language of flowers, there's going to be a lot of references that might interest you throughout this. Okay, so first thing is that other people will claim they have tips for going viral. So if you were to just hop on Google and kind of search, how do I go viral on TikTok, this is kind of the stuff that you might see: to post at popular times, to interact with your community, have a niche, be consistent, all that kind of stuff. And I hate to break it to you, but these aren't tips for going viral. These are actually just basic social media management tips. So whoever your social media manager is, they should already be doing all of those things pretty much day to day, at least every other day. So this is just kind of like the bare minimum, not necessarily the things required to make viral content. So first little case study here is Octopus Lover 8 on TikTok. He's absolutely hilarious. His name is Jake. Definitely check him out if you don't follow him. And he recreates historical events as if they happened in the modern time. It's very funny. So he's got a niche. That's his kind of series that he does. He does all of these social media management things that you're meant to do, but often we refer to someone like him as having gone viral. And these are a lot of other people that we also refer to as having gone viral, when in reality, these people are just great social media managers. They're not necessarily have gone viral. And I just kind of like want to get that difference in your head initially between social media management and virality. Because if we looked at all of those people and we went way back on their feeds, we would see that they've been creating content for years and years, posting like 3 to 4 times a day. It wasn't an overnight type thing, even though it sometimes feels like it was. So to dive into the difference of social media management versus virality, I want to talk about what virality means by definition, which is the tendency of an image, video, or piece of information to be circulated rapidly and widely from one internet user to another. So the key thing in this is that virality is about a singular piece of content. So it's actually not by definition meant to be used about a person, about an aesthetic, about someone's feed. It's really just that singular video, meme, post, etc. So when it comes to virality, I believe that designing viral content is kind of more about what knowing not to do. And I say this because I think that the best comparison is that going viral is kind of like winning the lottery. So there's no like advice that you can give someone on how to win the lottery. It's more just like, if you don't buy any lottery tickets, you're definitely not going to win the lottery. So we can't always guarantee what will go viral, but we can almost always guarantee what content won't go viral. So I'm basically going to kind of walk you through all the trends that I notice in content that will likely make your content fail or not go viral. Of course, there are exceptions to these, but All right, so number one is to bore our viewer. This is like the number one thing we don't want to do on TikTok. And I see this being done in two ways most of the time, which is content that is too long or has too much ethos. So, length. Nearly 50% of users on TikTok think a video over a minute is quote unquote stressful. So we've all been there where we're like scrolling and a video comes up, we start watching, we've been watching for a bit, we've been watching for like 30 or 40 seconds, and then we see that the little bar at the bottom is only like a fifth of the way through, and we actually start feeling physically anxious because we don't know if we should keep watching, if we should get through the whole thing. We're interested in the content, but we get this like anxiety about it, which is absolutely wild, but that's where we're at with attention span. So Gen Z has an attention span of 8 seconds currently, and that's only gonna go down. And while I was researching this, I saw an article that teachers nowadays have to make lesson plans like in pieces and basically have to make them like 10 minutes or less, or it's just hopeless. So the sad thing is for ads, that number goes way down to 1.3 seconds. And probably everyone here maybe works for an agency or for a brand, and we're all really passionate about our agencies and our brands, but the average person on the internet doesn't really care that much. They're interested in what you have to say, but they're not necessarily interested in your brand itself. So we have to be wary of that because although we think that our content is like amazing, everyone else is reading it as ad content. Next thing, ethos. So this is the distinguishing character, sentiment, moral nature, or guiding beliefs of a person, group, or institution. So more simply put, this is basically what makes you trustworthy, your character, and your credibility on social. So this is basically just why should anyone want to hear what you have to say versus someone else? Why is any of this believable and not just fake news? Okay, we're getting to our first little case study here, which is one of my videos on what a peony means in the language of flowers. So this was a good day for me. This video got 36,000 likes, which I will take that any day. And I kind of wanted to walk through a bad intro versus a good intro. So a bad intro would be something like, I'm obsessed with flowers, I run a florography account, and I even did my dissertation on the language of flowers. I have a big bunch of peony here with me today, and this is the perfect season for peony, so let's talk about what they mean in the language of flowers. So that was a lot. That definitely passed that 1.3 seconds, probably even past that 8 seconds. And most of that, while it's all true information, is rooted kind of just like in my ego wanting to overshare about myself, but the average viewer is not necessarily interested in it. So this is what I said instead, which actually worked for this video and helped it go viral, which was, it's finally time to talk about peony and what they mean in the language of flowers. It is not going to be what you expected. So by me saying finally, I basically create that ethos in like a really low-key way, because I'm telling the viewer in the first 1.3 seconds that I have talked about so many flowers before, this is not my first time, and now we're finally at peony. So they build that trust for me. And these are the links that we have to go to with this 1.3 second attention span. So for an agency, this could look something like, our clients ask us all the time about blank. Let me tell you why blank. You kind of just have to like do it as quickly as you can in a way that like works and fits in what you need to say, but doesn't drone on and on about what you've done, basically. I also say after that, it is not going to be what you expected to basically hook them in and like hopefully they continue watching. I did want to mention, just with like all of these points, there are exceptions to all of them. If you make content that is so incredibly boring and you talk about yourself for a minute straight, you might go viral just for that, and people will comment all about it. But that's not why any of us want to go viral. So, all right, next thing that we want to avoid on TikTok is being late. So all the time we see trending sounds, like the August Taylor Swift sound. That was a big thing last month. Same thing with the ceiling sound. And then a couple years ago was the Adult Swim running away sound. I noticed that all of these have to do with running. So if you notice any running sounds on TikTok, you might want to get on them very quickly. But on average, people start to get over TikTok trends by day 3. And this kind of might be like initially a confusing statement, because I know trends like that August Taylor Swift sound lasted the whole month, but that's that content that's being recycled. It's not necessarily the content that's being posted. So most of the content that does really well is posted on that 1, 2, and 3 day mark. So if you're a social media manager, you get home Friday night, see a piece of content, and you want to act on it, and you don't act on it until Monday morning, it might just not be worth your time anymore. It's not going to hurt you in any way, but in general, I would recommend being there on day 1 or 2. All right, number 3 thing that we want to avoid on TikTok to go viral, for the sole purpose of going viral, is being too niche, which I know is like the most frustrating thing to hear, because consistency and having a niche are like the 2 social media management things that everyone recommends. And with social media management, you absolutely want a niche to grow your community, but when we're looking at the sole purpose of virality, the goal is to appeal to as many people as possible. So in that case, appealing to as many people as possible and having a niche are actually like polar opposites and contradict each other. So you really can't have a niche if your goal is to just go viral. So you kind of, with your social media management, have to have a little bit of both. So this is a video I made, chat with me while I trim the stamen off of lilies. It really does not get more niche than this. So out of everyone in this audience, maybe like half of you buy flowers for yourself regularly and would have like any mild interest in this. Maybe like 10% of you purchase lilies or love lilies regularly. And then like of that 10%, maybe 2% go as far as plucking the stamen off of them. Like it really, this is so incredibly niche. And this got 250 likes, which is basically good for me on day-to-day community management. But it's not something that I expect to go viral. So kind of backing off of this, if we revisit those 12 videos that are my viral videos that I'm very proud of, 3 of the 12 had absolutely nothing to do with flowers. So one was about my sister's dog's eyelashes, one was about Harry Styles dancing with an aubergine, and one was a Taylor Swift theory video. So that dog eyelash video, I'm sure there's honestly a few people in this room who have seen it because it got 2.7 million views, was the most sales that I had ever had for my floral business, even though it had absolutely nothing to do with flowers. So my point in that is if you have a good idea, or if you're experiencing some sort of hilarious moment at your office or something like that, and it has nothing to do with the content that you create or the work you do, I would still post it. If it doesn't fit in your niche, but it will apply to that wider audience, definitely take advantage of that, and there's really like no harm in that. On the off chance that you post something not in your niche, doesn't fit with your aesthetic at all, and it doesn't do well, you can always just delete it. So this is my advice on that. Basically, just go for it if you come up with an awesome idea. All right, my last point is to be wary of creating extremely high quality visuals, which is another one that is pretty frustrating, I get that. As a PSA, this does not apply to travel or photography content. But I have a really good case study to show this. So this is an account on TikTok called My Harry Potter Kitchen. And this guy created absolutely exquisite content, like DSLR, fully edited. Each video probably took him a day to make. And he went through every single Harry Potter book. And anytime a food was mentioned, he created a recipe from it and shared it on his TikTok. So his community was so loyal. Like people were saying, I've been here since day 1, I love it. Wow, this stuff is so incredibly elaborate, et cetera, et cetera. But he never ever blew up. He had like a loyal community, and the people who would watch would follow and interact with it, but he never got more than like 10,000 likes on anything. And so I kind of questioned, was the quality too high for kitchen and cooking content? Could he have tried something different, like just standing in front of the camera and maybe in front of his phone, doesn't even need a fancy camera, and just like talking about the book, talking about what he's cooking, and it would take way less time to edit if he had filmed it on TikTok itself. And maybe he wouldn't have gotten as much burnout in the whole process and ultimately had to stop his account. So it's basically just about asking yourself, what is your time worth? And while that really high quality fancy content, again, might not hurt you, it's not necessarily what even does the best on TikTok. I would say like most of the time it isn't what does the best. That's kind of more Instagram type content. TikTok is a bit more personal, a bit more humorous, and that kind of content doesn't really feel like it was created for TikTok. And it can also be really time consuming, really expensive, and ultimately when you give days and days to something and every single day after day it doesn't go viral, it can be discouraging. So my take is that the most important thing is to create. And so if that's just like quickly making a casual video on your phone and like the idea being there of recipes and Harry Potter, kind of use that more than like the incredibly fancy content that's very draining. Okay, so we're gonna recap now all the like don'ts and kind of turn them into what I would say are some tips for virality. So the first thing that I would advise you to do is to cut out intros and videos full of ethos, as they can bore your viewer. Try to keep in mind that 8-second attention span, and even further, if you're at all trying to sell something, the 1.3-second attention span. Number 2 is to be quick with trending sounds, or it just might not be worth your time. So try to keep in mind that you want to action things on day 1 or day 2. It's never going to hurt you to participate in a trend, but it just might not be worth your time unless you're doing it kind of on that first day. I would say for my content, I probably make about like 80% original content, and then like 20% I'll hop on a trend. And the only time I ever had a trend video go viral was when I like saw the trend, immediately edited a video for it, and 20 minutes later posted it. So it is kind of one of those things you have to be really fast with it. Number 3 is to not to be afraid to step out of your niche, especially if you have a great idea. Once a month, if you have like an awesome idea that has nothing to do with your niche or even your brand or your company, post it, see what happens. It might end up positively impacting your brand anyway. You might not want to do this like every other day. That might confuse your audience, but in general, this is totally safe to do like once a month. And number 4 is to not prioritize fancy content over creating a lot of content. And this kind of falls into my overall point, which is to create and stumble across some luck. So as I said at the beginning, going viral is kind of like winning the lottery. And your lottery tickets are basically just how many TikToks you put out. So the more you can create, the better chance that you have. And if things are getting in the way of that, like really high quality content, you might have like less luck on actually putting out the content itself. So yeah, that's my overall advice, which I appreciate is a tough one, but it is the case with TikTok, and hopefully those tips help you. But thank you very much for listening. Definitely follow along if you're at all interested in learning about flowers and the language of flowers. These are my socials. When moving from the US to the UK, I had to change TikToks. So I really need love on my new TikTok, but definitely also check out my old TikTok because it has all the content that we just talked about. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the other talks following me on content creation. Thank you.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.